Hi everybody, Meesho is one of the most revolutionary startups of India, and the reason why I call them revolutionary is because they have redefined the playbook of e-commerce in India. So much so that today, millions of small sellers who never thought of selling online are now shipping products all across India. Today, a Jhumka wala from Rajasthan is able to ship his products to the neighborhoods of Kashmir, and a clothing retailer from Maharashtra is shipping her t-shirts all the way to Kanyakumari. And you would be shocked to know that while e-commerce giants like Amazon and Flipkart have been burning cash in the Indian market, Meesho has already achieved profitability in the Indian market, and that too by empowering the smallest sellers of India. So by democratizing internet commerce for everyone in India, Meesho today has become a $1 billion company.
Meesho has become really the alternative for the Flipkarts and the Amazons of the world.
I think more than 60% of our products are decently cheaper than any other marketplace.
It's a fast-growing e-commerce market. It targets smaller towns and cities.
Its rapid expansion and execution has helped it emerge as a challenger in India's e-commerce space.
Currently, Meesho is the only true marketplace which is horizontal and profitable as well.
Our vision is to enable 100 million small businesses in India to succeed online.
And you know why this is even more surprising? The average order value of Meesho is just 360 to 370 rupees, while for Amazon and Flipkart, they have close to 1000 rupees in AOV. On top of that, 65% of the products sold on Meesho are 20 to 30% cheaper as compared to their competition. But even then, somehow, Meesho has emerged as a profitable e-commerce unicorn in India, and that too in less than 10 years. And Meesho is growing so fast that while Amazon and Flipkart's active users grew by 13% and 21%, Meesho's active users as of December 23 grew by 32% year on year. And you would be shocked to know that the customer retention rate for Meesho is as high as 80%. So the burning question over here is, how on earth did Meesho manage to grow their business and achieve profitability in spite of the presence of Amazon and Flipkart? What exactly is their business strategy to achieve profitability in a hyper-competitive market like e-commerce? And most importantly, what are the business lessons that we need to learn from the profitable rise of Meesho? To understand Meesho, the first thing you need to understand is the e-commerce industry of India and the gap that Meesho identified. And we all know when e-commerce in India started catching fire, right?
Jio will give the power of data to each Indian to fulfill every dream and to collectively take India to global digital leadership.
1,000 mobile phones sold every minute, 7 t-shirts, 3 saris and 4 pairs of footwear sold every second. $5 billion worth of e-commerce sales and nearly 18 million shoppers across all platforms.
If we see the size of the Indian e-commerce market, today it stands at $112.93 billion, and it is expected to grow to $299 billion in the next 5 years. That's a staggering jump of 164%. But if you look at how much of this market has been scrapped out of the conventional retail, you will realize that e-commerce is just getting started in India. If you look at this chart, as of 2022, e-commerce has grown to reach just 8%, I repeat, 8% of the total retail market in 2022. So, 92% of this market is still left unpenetrated. And back then, when Flipkart and Amazon were riding the internet wave of India, they were primarily focused on tier 1 cities. And it does make sense, right? Tier 1 consumers have higher disposable incomes, they easily adopt to new technology, and there is enough logistics infrastructure in these cities which increases your probability of success. But you know what, guys? Most people forget that India is home to 60 million small and medium businesses that contribute to 85%. I repeat, 85% of the overall retail market. But even then, a large chunk of these people in tier 2, tier 3 cities back then had never used e-commerce. And even today, a large chunk of people have never used e-commerce at all. This was simply because they felt it was too costly and it was too complex. So both a large segment of buyers and sellers were unknowingly excluded from the e-commerce revolution of India. And this is where, ladies and gentlemen, the founders of Meesho, Sanjeev and Vidit, found a gap in the market. They realized that while everyone was bullish on tier 1 cities, the tier 2 and tier 3 cities of India were not being addressed properly by the e-commerce revolution of India. And they found 3 major pain points in the existing e-commerce industry back then. The first pain point was the cost of selling on these platforms. If you see, the cost of doing business on e-commerce platforms is very, very high. So if you look at this table, it shows how much a seller needs to pay in commission and services on different platforms. So sellers on Flipkart get 60% of their selling price, and on Amazon they get 70% of their selling price. So 30 to 40% of their selling price goes into just commissions, fees and GST. And this is a very high percentage for a small and medium-sized business. This is the reason why many small sellers refrain from selling online and they just focus on offline retail. This is the reason why a market of 63 million MSMEs were either struggling or were not selling on e-commerce at all. So long story short, the commissions were painful for the online sellers of India. This is the first gap that they found in the market. The second gap that they found was the low penetration of e-commerce in tier 2, tier 3 cities. And like I said, it was due to the lack of awareness and trust amongst the small sellers. And the third pain point that they found was that the payment cycles were as long as 14 days plus another 5 days for clearance. To tell you about it, if Mr. Ram is a seller on Flipkart and sells a 500 rupee t-shirt, he gets that 500 rupees in his account after deducting the commission after 14 plus 5, that is 19 days. So the sellers have to wait for 19 days to get their money in their account. Now you might say, bro, what is the big deal in this? This is how business is done, right? Well, let me tell you what is the impact of this 19-day credit cycle on a small business owner, and then you tell me whether it looks like a big pain or not. Let's say Mr. Ram invests 4 lakhs into his raw materials and then sells products at the end of the week to generate 5 lakhs in revenue. Now, if he gets this 5 lakh rupees on the same day, he can take home 1 lakh rupees and reinvest 4 lakhs for the next week's raw materials. But if he gets paid after 3 weeks, then for week 2 and week 3, he has to deploy another 4 lakhs plus 4 lakhs for 2 weeks just to keep his production going. Or he will have to halt his production for 19 days, wait for the 5 lakh rupee payment to come, and then he has to start his manufacturing again. And this is obviously not practical, right? You can't just shut the factory for 19 days. So in this case, what will Ram do? He will either have to deploy 8 lakhs in extra working capital, or Mr. Ram will have to take out a bank loan of 8 lakh rupees and then he will have to pay an interest of 10 to 12%, which degrades his profitability. This is the cost of the 19-day payment cycle in the life of an MSME owner. So to sum this up, what were the gaps in the market? High commissions, low penetration due to lack of awareness and trust, and very long payment cycle. This is the reason why in 2015, Sanjeev and Vidit decided to start a company that we all know today as Meesho. And their vision was to democratize internet commerce for everyone by empowering the small sellers of India with the convenience of e-commerce and the superpower of e-commerce supply chain. At the same time, they also wanted to empower the buyers of India with affordable pricing, an easy interface, and the accessibility of a vast catalog. And fast forward to today, which is 9 years later, Meesho has more than 1.8 million sellers selling more than 120 million products. And like we said before, today products on Meesho are 20 to 30% cheaper than other e-commerce websites. So now the question is, when Amazon and Flipkart both had the first mover advantage, how did Meesho crack the e-commerce industry of India and become profitable? Well, this is a story that dates back to 2015 when Vidit and Sanjeev saw a shopkeeper at a garment store in Koramangala who sold his products using a WhatsApp group. And they were shocked to know that 40% of the store sales were coming from WhatsApp group itself. So you know what they did? They thought of making WhatsApp groups to empower these retail shopkeepers to sell more. And they did it with a company named Fashneer. But soon enough, they realized that managing commerce on WhatsApp was not practical for 2 reasons. Number one, most of the times these shops were out of stock, and even then the customers used to place orders. So the shopkeepers had no option but to apologize to the customers for not having enough stock. And secondly, cash on delivery turned out to be a big pain. Why? Because during that time, UPI and Paytm like apps were not normal. So the delivery person would pick up the order, deliver it to the customer, take the cash, go back to the seller and then give that cash. So the logistics cost of cash itself was very high and the hassle was too much. So in 2016, they revamped this model and moved from WhatsApp group to an app. And this time they called it Meesho 1.0. So this was basically a B2B2C model. So if Mr. Sham is a garment reseller who wanted to sell to his customers, he would use Meesho to order products from his supplier and then sell to his customers. So Meesho was a platform for businesses to sell to customers offline. So it was a B2B2C model. And this model was doing very well. But soon enough, customers all across India started adopting to e-commerce after COVID. And within no time, many people discovered Meesho through word of mouth. And eventually, the customers started buying directly from the the sellers on Meesho. So now, instead of Mr. Sham buying it to resell to his customers offline, his offline customers directly started buying from Meesho. So Meesho transitioned from a B2B2C model to a B2C model where customers bought directly from Meesho. And today, Meesho is majorly a B2C business. So now the question is, Meesho became just like any other e-commerce platform, right? Because even Flipkart and Amazon did the same. So what exactly was different about Meesho? Well, if you understand this difference, you will automatically get a deeper insight into their business model. Firstly, unlike other marketplaces where sellers only get 60 to 70% of their selling price in their hand, Meesho charges 0% commission with a small fulfillment fee, which depends on the region that the seller is based out of. So if you list your product on Flipkart for 1000 rupees, as we saw in this table, you will get only 600 rupees on Flipkart, and on Amazon, you will get 700 rupees. But on Meesho, you will get the whole amount with a slight deduction of the fulfillment fee. So now the question is, if Meesho doesn't make money from sellers, then how does Meesho generate revenue? Well, Meesho monetizes their platform through performance advertising by its sellers. So if you're a seller on Meesho, you do not have to pay any commission or an upfront platform fee. But as sellers, you can choose to advertise your products on the Meesho platform. So just like your performance marketing on Instagram and YouTube, you as sellers can select a product from your catalog, allocate an advertising budget, and select the duration for the ad. And then you can choose to target your customers with this ad to increase your sales. And here's where you need to understand the different pricing models of performance marketing. In simple words, these pricing models can be named as CPV, CPC, CPA, and CPM. CPV is the cost per view model, wherein the platform charges the advertiser each time the ad is viewed. So the cost is based on the viewership of the ad. CPC is cost per click model, wherein the advertisers pay for each time someone clicks on their ad. So in CPC, the focus of the advertiser is more on converting the customer rather than brand awareness. Thirdly, we have the CPA model or cost per action model, wherein the advertisers only pay when a specific action such as a sale, download or sign up is completed. And lastly, we have the CPM model, which is cost per milli or cost per 1000 impressions. So in this model, advertisers pay for every 1000 impressions of their advertisement, and this model is again used for brand awareness. So when it comes to Meesho, it mostly depends on the CPC model to charge the sellers. Why? Because these small sellers are more concerned with conversion rather than brand awareness. To give you a deeper understanding of the same, let's say Mr. Ram, who sells men's garments, wants to increase his sales of a particular type of shirts. So he can select this shirt specifically for an ad campaign, and Meesho will move his catalog to the top of all discovery pages. So whenever a customer searches for t-shirts, Ram's catalog will be promoted and it will be recommended to the customer. So along with organic listings, even Ram's products will appear more often. So it's almost like Google listing its sponsored ads ahead of all the organic listing. And this is something that you'll see on Amazon also, whereby amongst all the organically listed products, there are some products that are sponsored products, as in for these products, the advertiser has paid money to Amazon such that those products could appear more often in front of the customers. So amongst many organically listed products, you will see some products that are sponsored. But this brings up another important question. Does it mean that the other sellers who do not pay for advertising are treated unfairly? Well, not at all, because if Meesho or any other platform does that, they will incur losses themselves. Which is why Meesho maintains a healthy percentage of 15 to 20% for ad listing, and the rest are organic. And for this advertising, Ram can allocate a budget. For example, if Ram is setting a budget of 10,000 rupees, then Ram will only be charged if his advertisement gets clicks, shares, or if this product is added to the wish list. And if there are no clicks and just views, then Ram will not be charged at all. And after this campaign is done, Ram can use his campaign analytics to choose how he wants to modify his campaign if he wants more return on investment. Now, do you realize this way, Meesho has made performance marketing accessible to the smallest vendors of India. And this is what makes them a major driver of the digital revolution of India. Cherry on the cake, Meesho also has something called the supplier panel to assist the sellers. So the sellers get recommendation from the panel, and this panel helps them get recommendations. For example, their price recommendation tool helps the sellers set prices, gives them information on what is the average selling price of other sellers in the same category, and Meesho even tells them which products sell well during a particular season so that the sellers can stock up their inventory accordingly. This is how Meesho has empowered the small and medium sellers of India. And the fun fact is that even manufacturers make up 55% of the sellers on the platform. And today, Meesho has 120 million average monthly active users, and it is the fastest growing e-commerce platform in India. And you know what, guys? This unique and bold business model gave Meesho two incredible advantages. Firstly, since the platform has zero commission, sellers often pass on the savings to the customer. For example, if the original selling price of the product is 1,000 rupees and a seller incurs a 30% commission on it, it would sell for 1,300 rupees, right? But on Meesho, the seller doesn't incur this 300 rupee commission at all, and he's able to sell it at 1,100 rupees. Whereas on other platforms, the same product is available at 1,300 rupees. And this 300 rupee difference is where the magic is. Because do you realize, India is a country where 80% of the people make less than 30,000 rupees a month. So a 200 to 250 rupees price difference is a very big deal for this customer base. So guess what? This delta in price results in a large pool of customers deliberately choosing Meesho over other platforms. As a result, Meesho acquires more customers. These customers buy more from sellers, eventually resulting into more sales, and this further encourages more sellers to come on the platform, which again gets more customers on the platform. This is the first differentiator of Meesho, which is a zero commission model and the revenue model that is based on performance marketing. The second differentiator of Meesho is that they have reduced the payment cycle for these sellers from 19 days to just 7 days. Now, what is the benefit of this? Well, let's understand this using Mr. Ram's context. Earlier, if you remember, Mr. Ram got paid after 19 days. So he either had to put in 4 lakhs in week 2 and 4 lakhs in week 3, or he had to take out a loan of 8 lakh rupees in working capital for week 2 and week 3. But now, with a 7-day payment cycle, Mr. Ram will have his 4 lakh rupees in working capital for next week at the end of week 1 itself. So he won't have to put in another 8 lakhs in extra working capital, and he doesn't need to borrow 8 lakhs from the bank and then pay a 10 to 12% interest. So do you realize this is a very big deal for the small sellers of India? And most importantly, the third differentiation of Meesho is that they do not compete with their own sellers. Which means what? Just like Amazon launched Amazon Basics, Flipkart has launched Flipkart Smart Buy. So if you see, by launching these products, these e-commerce platforms are competing with their own sellers. But Meesho does not have any private labels to compete with its own sellers at all. In fact, if you see this table, Amazon has more than 110 private labels like Amazon Basics and Amazon Essentials. Flipkart has 14 plus private labels like MarQ and Smart Buy, whereas Meesho has 0 private labels. Now you might say, bro, how is this a big deal? Well, let me tell you guys that the margins in private label brands for e-commerce platforms are sometimes double as that from sellers. In fact, you would be shocked to know that the margins in private label brands could go as high as 60 to 65% also. So even though there is a profit to be made, Meesho does not have private labels. And this is because Meesho wants to stick to its vision of empowering the small and medium scale business owners to build their business rather than competing with them. And they believe that with this philosophy, they'll be able to make more profit as compared to competing with their own sellers. Fourthly, Meesho has an asset-light model unlike other e-commerce platforms like Amazon and Flipkart. So as usual, let's understand this with an example briefly. So if you look at the e-commerce models across the world, you will see that there are two types of models. The first is the inventory model and the other is a marketplace model. For example, let's say you sell books on a platform called Tramazon. Let's say it takes you 200 rupees to produce this book and you sell this book on Tramazon at 500 rupees. Now, if Tramazon operates with a marketplace model, so all that Tramazon will do is just list your products on its platform, and after the customer places the order, Tramazon will collect the product from you and then take it to the customer using Tramazon logistics. So in this story, if you see, Tramazon is only acting as a listing platform and a logistics partner, right? This is what you call as a marketplace model, whereby the platform merely helps you list and ship your products to the customer. And in return, the platform charges you a fulfillment fee plus marketplace commissions. But if you look at the inventory model, in this model, what Tramazon would do is, it would directly buy 10,000 books from you in bulk and pay you 300 rupees per book. Now, because you're getting to sell your books in bulk instead of 500 rupees, you would agree to sell it to Tramazon at 300 rupees. And just like you, many other sellers will sell their products at a lower price to Tramazon because they are buying in bulk. And then you know what Tramazon would do? Tramazon would sell these products at whatever price they want. So today they might sell it for 400 rupees and tomorrow they might put up a 20% discount and sell the same product at 320 rupees. And sometimes they might even provide a lightning deal at just 305 rupees. And this time, when someone places the order, Amazon would just ship this product from its warehouse instead of collecting it from you. So this is how the inventory model works, whereby the platform itself collects inventory from the seller and then ships it to the customer from its own inventory. In this case, while Amazon and Flipkart use hybrid models, which is a mix of both inventory and marketplace model, Meesho primarily operates only with marketplace model. And this is what gives them three major advantages. Number one, they do not have to worry about procuring products in bulk from sellers, so they do not have to make heavy investments into buying or storing inventory. Number two, they do not have to worry about changing the prices and optimizing for sales. And lastly, they do not have to worry about dead or waste inventory. This is how they remain asset light, so less investment, less hassle and less wastage. Now, this is not to say that a platform cannot make profit using inventory model. It's just that different platforms have different philosophies. In case of Meesho, it has an asset light philosophy. And this is what brings us to the fifth differentiator of Meesho, which is they do not do seller tiering. For those who don't know, seller tiering means prioritizing a certain group of sellers over others based on their performance. So the better you perform, the better benefits you get. For example, Flipkart has gold, silver and bronze. So you will be categorized in these categories based on your performance in the last 90 days. And if you fall in gold, you will get benefits like 20% discount on shipping, payment cycles will reduce to 7 days from 15 days, and your visibility will increase. Eventually, you will also get better support from Flipkart. Similarly, if you go down to silver, you will get a little less benefits. And for bronze, it is even lesser. Now, you might say, bro, what exactly is the problem with this model? Because if you're incentivized based on your performance and you're given benefits, then that's great, right? Well, on the outside, yes, this does look fantastic. But if you look at this model from a new seller standpoint, then it gets a little difficult. So for a new seller, it will be very difficult to outpace someone who is already in the gold category, because the gold seller will keep getting better terms to grow their business. So because of this, it seems as though the gap between the big sellers and the small sellers will keep on increasing. And if you look at Amazon, some 33 Amazon sellers accounted for about 33% of all the goods sold on the company's website. And that means a few sellers are prioritized over a big chunk of small sellers. And this has also led to a lot of legal litigations against Amazon. But when it comes to Meesho, Meesho does not prioritize a few sellers over others. They treat all their sellers equally. And because of this, they've been able to attract a lot of sellers from tier 2, tier 3 cities. And lastly, Meesho has worked heavily in reducing their logistics cost for the sellers. And since the AOV on Meesho is anywhere between 300 to 350 rupees, the sellers with such low AOV, they feel the pinch when they have to incur 60 to 70 rupees in shipping and even more in reverse shipping when the products are returned. So Meesho reduced the cost of shipping from 30% of the average order value to around 15 to 20% of the average order value. And it further plans to reduce this number to just 8 to 10% of the average order value. So now the question is, how are they able to do it? Very simple. They are able to do it because of three reasons. Number one, Meesho has the scale of 3 to 3.5 million shipments a day. Secondly, they have outsourced their entire logistics to third-party logistics partners. And thirdly, Meesho's share in the overall outsourced e-commerce logistics market is about 40 to 45%. So in short, Meesho is actually increasing the asset utilization of all these logistics partners. As a result, Meesho is able to negotiate better prices with these partners. And secondly, Meesho's customers are not looking for same day or next day delivery. If you remember from our quick commerce case study, Meesho's customers choose Meesho for value and not for convenience. Secondly, Meesho's customers are not looking for same day or next day delivery. So since goods are transferred in large volumes, the vehicle in logistics utilization is more than 80%. So the cost is brought down with scale and volume of products per shipment and better negotiation due to Meesho's scale. This is how, by tapping into the tier 2, tier 3 cities of India, by solving the most important pain point of the MSMEs in India, by building an asset-light marketplace model combined with zero commission and a super efficient logistics partnering, Meesho has built a profitable billion-dollar company in spite of the cutthroat competition in the e-commerce industry of India. And the result? Well, the word of mouth spread. So Meesho got customers without ad spend. As a result, their customer acquisition cost went down. And because of cost efficiency, their overall SG&A expenses reduced from 53% of revenue to 20% in H1 FY 23-24. And eventually, the revenue soared to give them more profits. And now to go up with Meesho, Flipkart has launched Flipkart Shopsy and Amazon has announced the launch of Amazon Bazaar. This is the story of Meesho's robust and bold business model. And before we dive into the lessons, I wanted to discuss something very, very important. People, a few days ago, I put up a community post asking about your experience with Meesho. Some of you mentioned common issues in Meesho and the e-commerce industry in general, which was about product quality, returns and refunds. So to understand this better, I reached out to Meesho directly to see how they are solving these problems, because this is something even D2C brands face on a daily basis. So they shared some interesting strategies like barcoded packaging, scan and pack programs and many such cases where they use technology to build trust and solve the problems in their supply chain. And all thanks to these strategies, Meesho's return success rate stands at 96%, and on an average, refunds are processed within just 25 minutes of the pickup, with the majority of them being processed in just 5 minutes. Additionally, last year, Meesho released something called the Trust Assurance Report, which explains how Meesho has actually solved the most common problems of e-commerce using simple and effective strategies. So if you're a Meesho customer, seller, or if you're building your own marketplace business, this report is incredibly insightful. I'll attach the link to the blog in the description, so go through it and let me know what you think. If this is clear to you, let's move on to the business lessons that we need to learn from the rise of Meesho. Lesson number 1. When you have giant competition in the market, the best way to build a business is to build a business in the blue ocean. In this case, Meesho's blue ocean were the tier 2, tier 3 cities of India. Lesson number 2. The tier 2 and tier 3 cities of India have a massive potential that a lot of people neglect. So if you can build a business here, it's a blue ocean that is just waiting to be tapped. And lastly, Jack Ma once said that you might be the shark in the ocean, but I am the crocodile of the Yangtze River. In this case, while the giants of e-commerce focused on tier 1, tier 2 cities and the big sellers of India, Meesho turned out to be a savior for the small sellers of India and for the manufacturers of India. And this turned out to be the greatest advantage for Meesho to become a profitable billion-dollar e-commerce company in India. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.